What's up, everybody? Welcome to Behind the MasterMinds, episode 84, our season 4 finale.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting season 4. We had a lot of great guests on our show. And if you don't know, I'm Brandon.
I'm Cece.
And we are ESCAPETHEROOMers. Have you guys played games where you needed to communicate information and, solve things together with your teammates?
Always.
If you haven't, you're going to meet some creators that provide those type of games, and they do it so well. And these types of cooperative games will be the topic of discussion today, and we're extremely honored to have two of the best designers of these types of games with us today on the panel. ADRIAN OLCZYK from 11 Puzzles and Jason PANDA and Jeffrey SAMBELLS from Complex Rooms. So let's start with a proper introduction for them. So I'm going to bring the guest in right now, and everyone give a warm welcome to them. Hey, everybody, how you doing?
Hi.
Whoa. Oh, wow. Okay. How's the weather over where you are?
Snowy.
Snowy in Canada.
Yeah.
It's cold. We're in Canada, so it's not as cold as it could be, but it's getting there.
That's pretty normal, right? Snow on a regular basis. And Adrian, what about you? How's the weather? You looks like you have a lot of sun over there.
No, that's my. It's 10 p.m. here, so that's my lamp. But it's. I'm in Krakow, in Poland, and it's snowing like crazy the last couple of days. So we have tons of snow, and every morning I have to, clean the car, and but it's beautiful. Yeah, it's.
Be careful with that. And then I guess we're having rain today,
Yeah.
so not the same. Okay, so here we go. Adrian is the CEO and co-founder of 11 Puzzles. The company just published its co-op puzzle game called Unsolved Case for PC, Mac, iOS, and Android. In the past, 11 Puzzles released Unboxing the Mind of a Cryptic Killer and Parallel Lab as web games, and now they are working to bring them to other platforms. The company is on a mission to build the most unique, captivating, and fun co-op puzzle games. Welcome to the show, Adrian.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And next up, we have Jason PANDA and Jeffrey. Is it SAMBELLS or SAMBELLS?
Yes, SAMBELLS. Yep.
SAMBELLS. And they are the co-owners and creators behind Complex Rooms, in-person, online, and takeout games. Both Jason and Jeff are makers with a background in art and design, but their focuses are a little bit different. Jeff leads software development and manages software infrastructure and has a mad science interest in building, tinkering, and experimenting. While Jason has a background in education and is passionate about community engagement, collaboration, and belonging. Their complementary skill sets and friendship spanning decades makes them a creative powerhouse and an awesome team. A warm welcome to you guys as well. All right, so I've said enough. I'm going to pass it over to my cooperative.
That's me.
My cooperative team. Okay, yeah, she's gonna take over.
All right. So I have my first question for you guys. Let's start with giving our audience an overview of what the current games that you guys have, and what types are they? What kind of theme? How many players can play? Since it is a cooperative type of game. So let's start with Adrian first.
We actually very recently released Unsolved Case, and that's a game that is available now on Steam, iOS, and Android, and it can be played by 2 players. It's very short because that's the prequel to the series that we plan to expand and build upon on, and it follows the story of 2 detectives that chase the cryptic killer, but they didn't have a break in the case for a while, and the cryptic killer is still killing his victims. So they decided to purposefully fall into his trap as a way of getting closer to him and solving his game and catching him. And apart from that, we have 2 a little bit older games online. They are web games. They can be purchased on our website, and those would be Unboxing the Mind of a Cryptic Killer and Parallel Lab. And those games actually continue the story that we tell in Unsolved Case. And yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Do you think those will eventually be also on the apps as well?
Yes, exactly. That's part of our plan. The first step was releasing and unboxing The Mind of a Cryptic Killer. Second step is to move those two games to Steam, iOS, and Android. But we will give them a small revamp, add some puzzles, some new features, and stuff like that. And then the third step is our new biggest and nicest game, but I will talk about that later.
Yeah, Luna. Okay.
Right. Yeah, we have a sneak peek of unboxing of The Mind of a Cryptic Killer, so stick around for that. We'll give you
So, I mean, like, we both just played the prequel
Unsolved
recently,
Case,
and I was on the phone, so I was playing it on my Apple, like, ISO app, and then he was on the computer. So you can actually, I didn't know, but you can, like, mix and mingle when you are playing, like, one person can be on the phone, the other person cannot be on the computer as well, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was very important for us, that it's cross-platform, because not everyone has, like, two PCs available, or something like that. It's much easier, especially, a lot of our players are casual. So, well, it's fairly often scenario when where one person has a PC and the other is playing on a mobile, and that's very useful.
Yeah,
and then in case, I guess, if you are like a one player and you wanted to try the game, if you wanted to, you can have like two screens.
That's
collaborate
cool.
with yourself.
Players. We had players playing like that as well. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Not the cheating way.
Yeah, no.
Just all right, let's get to Jason and Jeffrey. Who wants to take this question? Or you guys can both answer.
I'm usually the talker, so Jeff, interrupt me at any point. But yeah, I'm usually
no problem.
He's the thinker, I'm the talker. So we started off as escape rooms about 5 years ago. That was kind of our goal. So we built a series of escape rooms. We wanted to be challenging, complex rooms. We also wanted to be family friendly. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to kind of explore other problem-solving experiences. So we've stepped into takeout games, which is the idea of an escape room in a box. You could rent it, decks of cards, puzzles, and then over the last couple of years, and COVID absolutely pushed us in that direction, and that is designing some online games as well. And so we've just recently closed our in-person rooms and are focusing on the takeout and online experiences. We have 2 online games right now, and we're in the process of designing at least one more. So we have many in the works. We'll see how many we launch in 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the 2 that you have in terms of themes?
The 2 that we have online right now, the first one's Legends of Canada, and that was the first one we wrote. And I say we wrote it, but Jeff programmed it. And it was actually based off of our in-person escape room. So the puzzles were pretty much 95% written. The footprint, the experience, everything. It was just translating to an online environment, which was really interesting because obviously they're different spaces. And then the other game, Space Force, which is the one that won the award, I believe it was last year. It was actually written, I wrote it as a desktop game. And the idea was I was imagining 4 placemats and sitting around with my family of 4 and only being able to look at our placemat and then having that conversation. Through some testing, it kind of pushed into an online space to allow both. So people can print or they can play online.
Yeah, I remember when we first played S-Base, it was so much fun. We actually played it with Bluefish Games because you needed 4 players to play, and we all had so much fun collaborating.
I think it was like the initial stages of seeing cooperative games from the online time frame. Then when you said when COVID was pushing different designers to design online games, and first time we saw how much like communication was needed in between players in order to, and then first time finding out also like certain players didn't have certain information that the other players can see, and that was when we realized like, oh, games can be played like this, and that's what the communication factor was. Which is really cool.
I find that really interesting. And there's some great 11 puzzles. There's some great companies that handle that sort of collaboration, that communication, cooperation, and that's a really hard balance because you're going to have some people that go into the game that want that experience where there's 2 players and I will only look at my information and I will communicate, and there's others who will say, why can't I see what you can see, and we'll get kind of angry. So they're different audiences. We do have sort of back doors into the other spaces through the games, if you remember, so you could creep into the other room if you really want to, and so we kind of left that up to the player as opposed to, I would love to be say, no, you can't, you're not allowed to do that, but we'll leave that up to the players to make those choices.
That sounds like escape rooms when you're like the puzzle hogger. You're like, nope.
Let me see it. No, it's mine.
All right, so then you want to play the trailers for them?
Yeah,
so
let's take a look at
what the games look like.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the Legends of Canada since you just mentioned it.
Okay.
And here it is. Yeah, I remember being able to look from one wall to the next and actually feel like we were in the room and just taking a look at everything and searching around the room, trying to remember which wall had what. So it really did put us like, it felt real. It felt like an escape room. So
I actually just remember learning a lot of stuff about Canada. I was like,
oh, that too. We're Canadians now.
That was a fun game to write because we wrote that game when we were at first entering our physical space. It was the first escape room we were writing, and we were forced to only use a small, I don't remember the exact measurements, Jeff might remember, the certain footprint we had because the rest of our space was being built up, bathrooms and everything else. So we only had enough space for 6 or 7 people to explore, but we didn't have the multi-room environments. And so the idea was what storyline museum would fit that sort of space. And we also wanted to target, we wanted an audience of not necessarily enthusiasts right off the bat. We wanted to write for enthusiasts, but we wanted to welcome those who haven't really experienced escape rooms. And even though they've been around for a while, it's still amazing that some people haven't experienced this sort of puzzling environment yet. But we wanted it to be friendly. And hey, Canada's a friendly place.
Yeah, well, you have a Canadian right here. Hurrah for Canada from Matthew Louie.
Yeah. And since we've just played the video, it's like fresh in our minds. Can you tell us what platform did you guys design these games on? Is it your own platform? What do you use? And is everything done in-house, including graphics and music?
Sure. Yeah. So our platform, our website's in WordPress. So the game itself is actually just straight HTML, JavaScript, web technologies. Nothing too fancy in terms of the coding language and whatnot. Now, the goal is that we want to get that into Steam, something like that, so that it's also available in computer platforms outside of web browser. But yeah, you can play it in any web browser, including mobile. So mobile apps, mobile desktop apps, anything like that. And then we do have some underlying technologies in there, like WebSockets, to allow some sharing between devices as they're being used live. And all our graphics and whatnot are all done by Jason and myself, custom, and we use some royalty-free music and that kind of thing. But it's all basically hand coded from top to bottom. So.
Wow,
very clean though.
Yeah,
I feel like it's really like crisp.
Yeah,
and a lot of the graphics looks really nice.
All right, so let's take a look at unboxing the mind of a cryptic killer. Here we go.
Package.
Ali, I can hear you.
Welcome, detectives. It's time to play a game.
Yeah, sorry about that. I meant unsolved case.
Yeah, that's it. Their newest one, which is actually free,
Yeah.
right? That you can try downloading from the App Store.
Yeah.
And that is the prequel to the two.
Yes, it's a short prequel. It's 30, maybe 60 minutes long. It's free, available now on Steam, iOS, and mobile and Android. So it's very easy to start with our stories and with our games. Just grab it. It's right there.
Yeah.
So this is the prequel leading to unboxing, leading into.
Yes.
So how many more do you have planned after that? Like.
Oh,
sorry, I'm jumping ahead. She's gonna ask that question later. I want to know. Tell me now.
Yeah, but I do wanted to ask the question about the platform that you use to design the games on. The same question that I had for Complex.
Yeah, of course. So maybe starting with unboxing The Mind of a Cryptic Killer and Parallel Lab, because they were our older games, and they similarly to Complex Rooms, they are web games. They are coded from scratch using JavaScript and CSS, and there is actually React also involved there. But on the back end we used Firebase that also uses WebSockets, but at least we had some sort of a database behind it that managed the state of the players, and should someone would be disconnected or something like that, then the server knew exactly where they should pick up. So that's why we wanted to include that. However, some time ago, we made a decision to move the games to Steam, and it looks like Complex Rooms have a similar idea, and I think it's a great idea. And now we build our games in Unity, actually. So the games are in Unity, and the backend is using recently released Unity multiplayer. Because there is a lot of interaction between the players, and we need the server, and we need the network connectivity at all times. In terms of other parts of the game design, like story, game, puzzle design, graphics, music, those things we do actually all in-house. We have a graphic designer that he's drawing. He started drawing before he started even talking. And he's doing an incredible job, and we absolutely love working with him. He uses Photoshop and Affinity Designer, Photo, the standard stuff, I think. In terms of music, we have Tomasz on board, and he was making music since forever. And honestly, I don't even know exactly what type of tools he uses, but yeah, he designs and he composes music especially for us. In terms of voice acting, for example, so that's interesting story that actually in Unboxing the Mind of a Cryptic Killer, which was the first game that we released, we voiced the characters ourselves. And we decided to never do that again. that was something. So now we are working with professional voice actors, and it's fantastic. Oh, and I can see that we have on YouTube and in the chat we have Tomasz, our music designer.
Oh, there he is
already. Yeah.
Hey, Tomasz.
He's saying hi. And finally, sound design. We also use application called Soundly. We use sometimes we buy some sounds, sometimes we use royalty free, and we use this application to manage all of this. Quite often we have to also adjust the sounds in the game, so we use Audacity to do that, to make the sounds our own and to fit the game very well. And yeah, I think that's it.
You have a really talented team.
Everybody's just pitching in.
Yeah,
their
I feel
talents.
like they're all their talents starting when they're a baby. So
yeah,
you got a really lucky bear searching for talent.
That's true, and I honestly, I feel so grateful and happy because the people that I get to work with are so incredible and so talented. I just honestly, we were such a lucky people that we found each other, and that now we can work together. It's just insane and amazing. So yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, if you're ever looking for a cameo for a voice, either one of you guys, you can reach out to me. I'm definitely
Loves
down
doing
to.
those things,
Okay,
especially
noted.
gangster-related stuff. I don't know why.
Well, hey, I could be one of the victims, right? That you dispose of, and right away.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
But I do want to know, since you have such a complete team, in terms of your design process, what do you start with, the storyline or the puzzles?
Storyline. We in unboxing, I think that we started with the puzzles because that was our first game and we didn't know what we are doing. But now it's story. We start with the story. From the story, we derive the locations which players will be able to explore and where they will go, and what kind of items they will interact with, and then we move to puzzles. But puzzles, when we have the locations and the story and the goals for the players, then the puzzles, we make sure that they fit the theme very well, and they make the story better, they make the game better, and they fit everything.
Mm-hmm.
After this, we do a very, very crude, very basic prototypes, and quite often we start with pen and paper, and then we code it but only black and white, and it's very, very basic. But that's, in my mind and in my opinion, that's one of the most important parts of the development, because at this point we test the ideas until we feel that it's right, that it works very well. And at this stage we can iterate very quickly because we don't have fancy animations, we don't have complicated graphics, we don't have anything like that. We just have bare bones puzzles and story, and we test on that. And after this stage, we built upon it. So we add graphics, animations, voice acting, sounds, music. But when everything is done, we do another round of testing just to make sure that everything works. And but that's a lot of testing. Yeah.
That prequel that you just completed, how long did that take?
That was 8 months.
8 months.
Wow.
Half hour of gameplay, 8 months of work. But also in this time, we had to learn new technology because we didn't know exactly how to do this in Unity, and there was a couple of other things that we had to figure out. But a lot of things were happening in parallel, so we were doing a lot of testing and game design while also we were developing the engine for the game.
Got it. Yeah. What about Complex Room? Do you guys have anything to add to the
process?
Yeah, your process.
I think it's very similar. I think though our games don't have as much of a narrative as it seems that 11 Puzzles does. We focus on environment and story when it comes to sort of an arc, not necessarily a linear path. And so we start with an environment, so a museum or time machine or some space heist, and then we write puzzles from there. We absolutely do testing. Yes. I love the critique and that process of just ideas evolving. Jeff and I, we both love that. But I think because Jeff and I are both artists and makers, we do write our first version of the puzzle, sort of very rough paper, pencil. But as we create, as we draw or build or things visually materialize, we find puzzles in what we're creating as well. So the puzzles evolve as we design. I think there's only 2 of us, and so as we're building, we bounce ideas back, and then we don't sleep, and so our ideas just keep evolving inside as well. So it's there is a similar arc when it comes to developments, but it's probably a little messier, might be a better word, than anything else.
Yeah, oftentimes our puzzles will come up with an idea for a puzzle, and then by the time we're actually done with it, it'll be completely different.
Totally different.
Some essence of the original idea, but it'll have gone through several iterations. And
I think that's pretty common, though. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, no, I mean, most of the time when, first of all, I guess it's you come up with the puzzle, but then you don't really know if it's still doable, because there's a lot of cooperative aspect to it too, right? That you have to incorporate into the game. So when you're doing the actual programming or design sector, do you sometimes find that oh shoot, like it's a great like idea, but it's actually not able to be implemented.
Yeah,
well.
especially with different technologies that people might have. If you're not locally in the same area or in the same room, like someone might have better sound on their computer, or someone might be using a mobile device that doesn't have the same interaction as a desktop and that kind of thing. So coming up with a puzzle that works across the board is challenging sometimes. So sometimes we'll be like, oh, this is really cool if we did this and this, but then we're like, well, it's not going to work on a mobile device, or someone without sound is going to be able to participate in that kind of thing. So just finding that balance, and obviously sometimes we have to decide, okay, yes, we want this puzzle to be audio based, so you're going to have sound to be able to do it, but we want to make sure that the widest number of people can participate in the game at one time. So
right, and it's not just creating puzzles, because it's an extra step. You have the puzzle, but then you have to split that in half to get two different parties to be able to come together to solve it. So it's like an extra added creative process for that. Yeah.
And since we're on this topic, I'm just going to ask about the challenges that you faced during your design process. And you've talked about the sound. I actually thought that was an interesting thing to say, because like you said, like maybe some people's sound is not as good, or sometimes they're playing an environment where they have to mute the sound because they can't like be playing in an office while, you know, they're working and have sound.
Who's doing that?
Boss might be hearing things, you know? Yeah. So like just certain things that you noticed during the design process that you feel like were challenges. You guys can go first.
From a technical standpoint, things just being consistent across platforms. So I know in like the Space Force game, our original desktop version had a puzzle where you kind of had to look at a certain angle at the puzzle to get the answer. And doing that on a mobile device, okay, yeah, it was good, but on a computer screen, it's kind of harder to move around and do that. So we had to come up with ways to be able to experience that on a computer screen and mobile, and in the case of this game, you can actually print it out. So some people might have a paper printed out; they'd be able to have a different experience than someone on a digital screen, that kind of thing. So,
right.
I do remember that.
Oh yeah, no, I took my monitor up and I went like this.
He's stronger than others. Yeah. What about Jason? Anything to add there?
Not specific. I'll just say yes. Yes, I think pretty much every puzzle, there's going to be something that we haven't thought about, and that's what the testing goes through. And if we don't find anything, then we miss something. So we go back, and there's always something. As I said, that critique portion really excites me, because that morphing the puzzle into something that works for a more universal audience or situation just is fantastic. So yeah, problems are there. We just have to hunt and be open to them.
I think it's important too. A lot of our online experiences have some kind of feedback mechanism. So if players are having a difficult time with something, then they have that option to give us feedback, so then we can go back and iterate on the puzzle and improve it.
Cool.
That's good. Yeah, that's good advice. Adrian?
Yeah, I can. Well, I agree 100% with the technical difficulties, and I would also add to that especially now when we moved to Unity and we released our games on Steam, the level of complexity that is involved in developing a multiplayer game that includes the server and that it has to manage like hundreds of players online at all times. That is definitely a big challenge when building a game like that. But also I will add to that more from a design standpoint that balance is very difficult to achieve well in games like that. And balancing a game like that is, for us, it's one of the most important things, but also one of the most difficult things to do right. And there is like a lot of different variants of the balance that it needs to be achieved in order to for game to work well. And also we've found that defining very clear goals for both players, so they know exactly what they are supposed to do game-wise and on the level and in the puzzles, but both of them know exactly what we want them to do at any point during the gameplay. That's also a challenge as well.
Yeah. Because you can't give like too much, because then if you give too much, it's like, oh, I found the answer, it's like right here. But then if you don't like give enough clues, then they can't connect the two pieces, knowing that they are actually associated with each other.
Right.
Which I think you guys do really great with your games.
And both players have to have something to do at all times.
Yeah.
The moment one player is getting bored and doesn't have something to do, that's not a great place to be.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because it's very similar to escape room like process and concept, like in a physical one too. It's like, if you're just doing a puzzle that one person can just do physically, and then there's no other puzzles that they can work on together, then the whole other group is getting really bored just watching this one person able to do something. So.
I mean, the game is most of your games are non-linear, but they're also linear because it's kind of like two minds thinking together in order for them to move forward, but they have to solve this together. So it's pretty like unique in that way. I mean, because escape rooms is either non-linear, divide and conquer, spread out and find stuff and solve stuff, or you all are stuck on one thing and you can't move forward.
Yeah, well, then that becomes the linear part of it. So they have a mix of linear and non-linear for sure.
Right.
All right. Well, one thing I'm amazed about is the way that some information can be, like you said, seen by one teammate, but not the other one. But they each have to have like enough information, like I said, to kind of understand what the other half is seeing so that they can tell them the information. So how do you guys go about designing something like this? And how do you control like how much information is given to a certain player at a certain time? I want to start with Adrian this time.
So, well, probably the simplest answer is just test and test and test and test. I guess that's similar with designing escape rooms and any other games like that. But in our case, given that our games are cooperative and players are separated, they see different things, different items on the screen, etc. We also set a couple of rules for ourselves while designing the game that we think make the experience for the players better. And one rule is, for example, that we don't want the players to have to click around and when they are solving a certain puzzle and or part of the puzzle, they shouldn't have to click between the items. Like one player would have to look at one item, then at the other, and then go back or something like that. Our goal is for one player to open a view of an item and just stay on this view through the whole experience and through the whole process of solving a puzzle, and the second player would do the same. So this means that they don't have to explore, they don't have to look for different items. They have everything they need on the screen when they are solving the puzzle. Second rule is just to give just enough information to the player and not include any items that don't play actually. So now, any item that is in the game, it has some sort of a meaning and it will be used in a puzzle. And it will be useful. And the third rule, items are used once, or like puzzles or any other thing like that. They are used just once. So players, well, they are used to also in escape rooms to this concept, but that way they don't have to remember about so many things. They don't have to think about like maybe this item will be used again or something like that. And especially in cooperative games, I think that it's very, very important because since they have to communicate, they have to talk with each other. There is a bandwidth problem. The more items and the more things they have, the more they have to talk, they explain, describe. So we don't want to add additional useless things for them to get confused. We just want them to communicate and to use the items that are important, because that's the communication aspect makes things considerably more challenging for them, and that's enough.
Yeah. And I think like one big thing I noticed in both of your games is that you don't really have like an inventory like portal type of thing where you have to like have the players go click in there to see like what else haven't been used or used. Whatever you need to use, like you said, is already on that screen. So you'll be able to either like unlock that lock, which is on that screen. So you don't have to like search and find what needs to be like, where is the key that I just got in order to open this lock that's in front of me, kind of thing. So that does definitely save a lot of confusion between the players. So.
Yeah, exactly. We had a couple of versions with the inventory system, but we couldn't make it work well enough, so we decided to not do inventory at all. However, we have a couple of new ideas, and actually in one of our upcoming games, we plan to include inventory system, but yeah, that's a story for later, I guess.
Okay, great. I'm excited to hear it. Okay, well, Jason?
So when we wrote our escape rooms, we tried to make, I think, Jeff can correct me, I think most of our puzzles require you to find one thing and then some connecting thing somewhere else in the room or another space, or basically finding two things that come together. And so we took that idea and brought it into our takeout games and online games. So when we're playing with cooperative, instead of it being the item you find and the room, it's just the item you find and then another item somebody else finds. And so it still requires that. And I think Space Force, and I don't, it's great that you call us experts in this field, because I still feel we're beginners in everything. We're just starting all of this. I'm really excited what's going to happen in 5 years from now. But when we wrote Space Force as kind of our first real cooperative game of this type, I believe there's 4 rooms there, and each room finds one number. And so that's really the cooperative part. And so you are all together, instead of everybody solving a 4-digit combination and finding that together, you're trying to work together to find the mechanics of the puzzle so that you can each solve the single digit in front of you, and then together find what order those 4 digits appear. So that was kind of the mechanics behind Space Force, and we just kind of borrowed that and kept using that moving forward. But it's really taking the idea of the room and putting it in a box, or splitting the room up between multiple people.
Yeah, I think like it worked really well in terms of giving each individual something, so that this way they know that, oh, if you solved like 3 digits, obviously it's a 4-digit lock, that other person still has that, last piece of the information. So,
and then they can still help each other because they're together trying to figure out the mechanics of the puzzle. And then if one person gets it, they can share, and they still have to have that, oh, this is how you do it, but you don't actually see what's in front of you. I also really like the layout of that game, because at first glance, they all look the same. So if you were just to describe it, oh, I have a piece of paper, I have 4 yellow sticky notes, I have this weird spaceship thing. Oh yeah, I have that too. But it's the way it's presented, the way it's organized, the way it's turned. These are all actually very, very different. So I like that eye-opening moment when people realize that.
Yeah, I think we had that conversation when we all, what do you see? Oh, I see this. Oh, me too. And it's like, wait, but it's a little different.
It's a little different. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, both of your games, the unboxing of the Mind of a Cryptic Killer and the Space Force, received Bullseye Awards, so I'm sure they're wonderful. And now we're going to take a break and get our raffle segment done, because these winners are going to have so much fun and a great time with these games, because they can play with their friends and family during this holiday time, like you said. So, all right, we ready? Let's do our first raffle giveaway, which is the unboxing the Minds of a Cryptic Killer game.
All right, and a drum roll, please.
The winner is at IA Stranger. IA Stranger. Congratulations.
Congratulations, IA Stranger.
I'm a stranger.
A stranger.
But this is why I don't pronounce it.
Yeah.
It's been on the thing. Yeah.
Congratulations, IA, and yeah.
All right. So now from the complex room, we're going to have both of their digital games in a bundle pack, and it's Legends of the Canada and Space Force.
We're going to find out who this winner's best friend is that they can play these games with. Drum roll, please.
And it's Yonion 11.
Oh, we know that's pronounced right.
Yeah, he's probably gonna like have a new what's it called? Time.
Oh, break the world record for fastest solve in space.
He's a great puzzler, so we'll see.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Do you guys have a leaderboard for these games? I don't know if you actually have them or not.
Yes, we have one. We actually had it published for a while, but it's the same reason we actually kind of took our leaderboard down in our space, because people would come in and be very competitive and would either be disheartened that they couldn't finish it in 20 minutes or look at it and say it's 4 hours or just whatever the timing. So we do have leaderboards. If people sign up in sort of a group 100 players, then we have a personal leaderboard that all the tickets will go towards it. But we took down our published one.
That makes sense. Yeah. Sometimes I'm looking at some of those online too, and I'm like, how is it possible that they finish in like 5 minutes? Unless they like went back in there and replayed it
and beat themselves,
and this does happen in real life escape rooms as well. So I just didn't know that it was very competitive online.
Yeah, but 20 minutes to me, I would be like, did you see anything? Did you look at anything, or did you just click, and not even like absorb any of the experience? It's just like,
I think our kids, mine and Jeff's kids, we some of them were testers, and so after the first time we gave them the other tickets, and I think they just went through as fast as they possibly could, which completely messed up the leaderboards. We said, okay, stop that.
I need to claim this throne forever. Like no one's gonna be my score.
Wait, was their team name like Jeff's kids and Jason's kids?
They're sneakier than
look out for them.
Oh my gosh.
What about the 11 puzzles? I don't remember if there's a leaderboard.
I don't think so, right?
No, we don't have public leaderboards, but we do track, how much time people will take to complete the game. And I have one funny story because when we released Unboxing the Mind of a Cryptic Killer, one of the first people that actually played the game, and until this day, it's the fastest person that played our game. Wow. And that includes we had a couple of tournaments in the game, etc. And this person was still the fastest. And now she works as a game designer with us. So that's very cool.
Yeah,
she set the record, and she was the second or third person that played the game ever. And and now she's worked with us. And actually, the puzzles and the game in Unsolved Case, that was all her, or mostly her. So.
Very nice. So this is how you hire people. You test them with your game, and if they do well, then they might be a good
That should be it. Want to work for us?
Yeah.
You have to dominate the leaderboard. Job description.
All right. We're gonna move forward. So, how do you approach and design? This is gonna be difficult, but difficulty of a game. Well, what ways do you implement in your hint system to help you guys with that? Want to start with complex first?
We don't start writing puzzles to be difficult, but as we come up with the mechanics, I know I do. I write a puzzle, I think, oh, I like that, but let's add another layer. And for me, the game designer, it's like, oh no, it's fine. One more layers, no problem. And then I present it to somebody, Jeff or anybody else, and they just blank face. It's like, okay, there's way too many levels. In there. I really do like layered puzzles, and I think that's something that has worked well for complex rooms, both online and in person. But I'd say, how do we make sure the difficulty level? We just do testing. So Jeff and I have seen so many puzzles, and we have just archives of puzzles that we've played with or haven't worked. We're putting aside for another game at some point. But I think it really needs real world testing and feedback to really understand just how they're going to work.
And how's your hint puzzle? I mean, your hint system, how does that build?
Yeah, in terms of our hint system, we offer these tiered hints. So because they're online and there's not a person there live to help them out, we'll have level 1 hint, level 2, level 3, and basically the hints get progressively more, giving you the answer by the end. But then again, as I said earlier, the feedback system. So if people are constantly getting to the third hint and not being able to solve it, something like that, they can give us feedback and say, hey, this didn't make sense. This needs work, and then we can go back and then revise and get it. So we ideally want people to not need the hints and be able to figure it out, and just use the hints maybe just to confirm their thoughts and that kind of thing. So,
I mean, one thought in my mind is since it is a cooperative game, one player might need a hint on their puzzle, and then the other one might need a hint on their side of the puzzle. So how do you do you separate them, or are they just in one tier of the hint?
So depending on the game, it's the experience per person. Someone could ask for a hint and not everybody else sees it. So in terms of that kind of thing, that one player could get a hint and the rest of them don't. But the way the puzzles work generally, it's that because it's cooperative. If they need a hint, it's probably because nobody else there gets it, or they all need a hint at the same time. So there's that one hint to say, hey, look at it this way, or kind of look at it this direction. And then if they still don't get it, then it's more like, okay, here's a bit more detail, and then eventually just the answer. So.
And we try to write the hints as though it's a friend in the room. So somebody sort of nudging and having that dialogue with the player, as opposed to it being too systematic or logical or point A to point B. Because we learned this from, again, the in-person escape rooms. We first year or so of a game, we would have a live hint system where people push a button or type in a code for what puzzle they're looking for, and we would write live hints right back to them. And then after a few hundred games, we realized, okay, these are the same questions at the same points. So we could refine the puzzle, or we could just have stock clues because we knew exactly what they were going to ask. So at a certain point, 90% of the clues were just the standard one, and every now and then you'll get something a little unique. So we applied that kind of philosophy through the testing process to understand what type of tiered hint system or tiered hints we would need for the puzzles.
Got it. What about 11 puzzles?
So in terms of design, maybe starting with that, probably the most important part of it is that we make the puzzles a little bit easier than we think they should be. Because when you design for a single person, for a single player, then it's very different. Adding the communication aspect, as I mentioned earlier, makes it a little bit more challenging for both players. And the second thing is that difficulty perception varies from person to person, and quite often people, more experienced players play with their spouse that are not that experienced with those types of games, and the game has to be enjoyable for both players. So we try to make them a little bit easier compared to what we would normally do. In terms of hints, we are doing something very, very similar to complex rooms. At some point we wanted, because in the game you play as two detectives, and we wanted the detectives to break the fourth wall and give a hint to the player, but we never get to that. Maybe we'll do this in one of our future games. But yeah, we have a tiered system that is helped by the fact that each item plays only once and is associated with only one puzzle. Therefore, we have hints for specific items, and we know exactly if a person wants a hint for this item, means that this person has a trouble with this specific puzzle. And we have multiple tiers. Usually, the first one tells the players which items are required in order to solve this puzzle, and then we move forward. But we try to break down the whole solution and the whole process as much as possible for players to be able to choose how much information exactly they want in order to solve it.
And since you mentioned about, maybe one player is more experienced than the other, how do you balance the both sides of the puzzle being same amount or same difficulty level? How does that?
We usually don't think about balancing the difficulty in terms of this player will be less experienced and this player will be a little bit more, because if they work together, they usually solve the same puzzle, because all puzzles or most of the puzzles in our games require both players to be actively involved, meaning that it's more or less the same difficulty for both of them. We do more balancing in terms of how fun it is, what they are supposed to do, because sometimes the puzzle on one end is a little bit more interactive and the other is a little bit more static, and so we are trying to balance more of that. But in terms of difficulty, it's the same for both players.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I feel what about you guys for the complex rooms in terms of balancing?
I think it's the same thing, is that really it's not that there's two sides that have different difficulty level. It's really two parts of the same puzzle that they're just contributing. I think what is tricky is to split the puzzle. So something that's really interesting to me, one of the games that we wrote, which we launched and then stopped launching it because it didn't work, and it was a game that was our spy game, and we had key cards that we gave to players as they walked in. And so if there was 3 players, they each got a certain key card. If there's 4 players, they got a different set of key cards. 5 players, a different set. And what it was is that every permutation of 3, 4, 5 up to, I think there were 10 cards, had a different grouping of pieces that you would need to solve the game, which means every single person in person was required. Because in an escape room, you can have that one person stand off to the side and do nothing, and one person take over. But this forced everybody to have a helping piece of the puzzle. It was very hard to manage in person because you had to keep track of all these things back and forth.
Yeah.
I think that's something, and that's actually one of the things that Jeff and I are looking at a game for this next year, is that idea is how do you write the same game, have 5 people play, and it be the same experience with as 8 people, and the puzzle still evenly split up between them. So it's a little bit of a math logic puzzle, and that's a puzzle in itself. But that really interests me, is how to balance that out. Same game for a different number of people.
It could be like a 8-digit lock for 8 players, or a 5-digit lock for 5 players, and then they each have to.
If we went with a Space Force type of thing, yes. But it's I'm thinking of it as, let's say there's a jigsaw puzzle with 12 pieces. 12 just a nice multiple number. And so if you have 2 people, they each get 6 pieces. If you have 3 people, they each get 4 pieces. 5. Let's pretend there's not 5 people. But that type of thing.
Right. Okay.
I think from a difficulty standpoint as well, like having some easy puzzles or easy layers, harder layers, so people are engaged with it. You don't want someone to sit there, start with a really hard puzzle and just get nowhere for half an hour or something like that. You want to make sure, okay, let's start them off with something that's clear. Okay, get that. Now let's build on that to the next level. They have to do a little bit more thinking, a little bit more searching. And then they kind of build up their confidence, so they're having a fun, enjoyable time rather than just being shown a wall at the beginning and just not understanding it and then giving up.
Right. Yeah.
And that's thanks Jeff for saying that, because that's a really important thing for us, is that first sort of a gateway puzzle that gets them working together right off the bat. Is that you feel good, you've done something, you've accomplished something. It doesn't have to be a hard puzzle, but it's that first step to collaboration, and then it sort of branches off. So yeah, that's
also
really important.
Kind of onboards them for the rest of the experience as well. Yeah. So we played most of I think all of your games by now, and we know what to expect when we're playing them. So I just want to know, like, when you're building these types of puzzles, like, and you're creating them in your cooperative games, like, what seems to be your favorites, or what's your go-to? Like, are they like logic puzzles, sound puzzles, visual puzzles? Like, what seems to be the thing that you enjoy creating the most for them?
Yeah. Symmetric, asymmetric, that was another.
Yeah. Adrian?
I think that we enjoy designing all types of puzzles. There are, so many of them, and those types of games, I think that the more variety there is, the better. That's just, the more types of puzzles you have, it's more fun, and it's more engaging for the players. In terms of symmetrical and asymmetrical puzzles, they are, from the design standpoint, hardest to do, or very not too often you can design a symmetrical puzzle, whereas both players have fairly similar things on their screen. Let's say they play a mini game or something like that, and they have different controls, but they are on the same board or something like that. So those types of puzzles, symmetrical puzzles, they are great in terms of the balance, because both players have the same thing, and they have both equal amount of fun, but they are hard to design, and this design approach doesn't apply in many cases. Apart from that, we do like logic and sound and visual and color and things like that quite often. However, we try, especially recently, to stay away from color puzzles, to be a little bit more colorblind friendly. Word puzzles, also we are going a little bit away from that to support localization and different languages. those kinds of puzzles, they are very difficult usually, or add additional steps in the whole translation process. And also, we, as a design decision, we also try to stay away from environmental puzzles a bit, or not 100%, but from environmental puzzles, because we've discovered that in cooperative games, quite often we ended up in the situation that one person had to search the environment for the next 5 minutes, and the other person would wait until the first one just finished finished searching for something in the environment. So we try to limit those kinds of like search and find interactions, and we try to limit the environments themselves as well, for the players to be engaged with the game 100% and all the time. And finally, one more thing to add. We also very much like to design mini games for the players, and they are normally, they shouldn't be called puzzles quite often, because they are like mini games. Mm-hmm. But when both players interact with each other in the game, and they have certain tasks that they have to cooperate in order to solve and to move forward and to achieve the goal, those are very, very much fun. They are not like standard puzzles, I would say, but they are great for the players, and they love it. So we really enjoy adding mini game style games as well.
Yeah, mini games are fun.
Yeah.
Complex rooms.
I know, Jeff. I'll let Jeff answer, because I think, yeah, for me, I know as a designer, an artist, I think I just by default start with visual puzzles. Those are ones that I gravitate towards. But really, puzzles more come from inspiration of elements. And so I don't necessarily sit down and say, I'm going to write an audio puzzle or something with language. I'm going to more look at the pieces that make up the story or environments that are happening. And then once the puzzles are written, step back and say, all right, those two are very similar. Let's get rid of one of those. Or, yeah, we have some of these, but we're not touching any of this over here. So let's write specifically for that. So that's how I go about it. I'm not sure about Jeff.
Yeah, okay. Similar along those lines. Is once we have that kind of the number of puzzles, depending on how many there are, we want to make sure there's a variety. We don't want like half of them to be the same thinking processes to solve them. So we'll think, okay, like can we add audio to this one, or can we make this one some kind of interactive element, that kind of thing. So yeah, just there's not a specific type that I prefer or that we focus on. Is more just making sure there's a variety of things throughout the game, so that it's not a repetitive experience.
Yeah. Well, with these cooperative games, like, we're so glad that you created this, genre for it, because, point and click games are great, tabletop, digital, audio, all these different variations of puzzle solving online at home is so much fun. But this is its own lane, because it does have a lot of those elements, but it forces people to come together. So for any future designers out there who want to start creating cooperative games, do you have any tips that you can give them, if they wanted to do it, or they wanted to start to think about creating? What was something you would offer them as an advice? Complex rooms.
Oh, I was hoping Adrian would go first, and I could just see it.
Adrian, want to go first?
Let's see. For me, cooperative, especially with COVID and everything that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years, belonging is something that's been very important to me. And collaboration, feeling like you're part of a team, part of a community, and so. This isn't something I start with, it's not something I end with, it's just the entire process is that the game, a collaborative, cooperative game for me is about people coming together. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely challenges. And yes, you want people to have fun and, aha moments, all of that. But I also want people to feel like they belong, that they're part of a team and they're all working together. So by the end of it, they feel good about being part of something. So, there's the puzzles and everything else, but for me, it's that feeling of being part of something that I think is important for me.
All right, Brian, you're going to take down the floor. I have a little emergency situation.
Oh,
I'll be right back.
Okay. She's going to make her own games now that she has some advice. Jeffrey, is there anything you wanted to add to that? That's great advice.
Same kind of thought that I have as well. So just making sure that your experience includes all the players, that they feel that they've all contributed to the end experience, and I think we've all said several times, test. So get people to play it before you kind of launch to the world. Get a lot of groups through different types of people, different experience levels, that kind of thing, to see how the whole game flows and what their feelings are afterwards, and that way you can make sure you have a good product.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add one more thing to that, just after the testing part, is don't be stubborn. Is that, and we all have ego. Every single one of us, when you have an idea and somebody critiques it, but be open to changing it. That's what the testing is there for, is that, you're going to come in with an idea, you think it's amazing, somebody's going to bring in some more information. Don't be stubborn. Listen to that feedback and figure out, you don't have to listen to everybody, because that's a nightmare. That's impossible. But, take that information and see what you can do with it to make the end goal and product better.
Right. I think to add on to that, Jason, is, you can't please everybody. So just, obviously take in all the advice and then, work with what you have and see what you can do to accommodate. So.
Absolutely.
Adrian, is there anything, words of advice, golden, tips that you want to give out?
There is a lot of gold nuggets. A lot of gold nuggets have been said here. I totally agree with testing. I totally agree with everything that was said here. I think that also it's important to think about the balance. I think I mentioned this a couple of times, and balancing the game, but also not balancing the fun in the game. I think that's the part. Just making sure that everyone has something to do and everyone is having fun. I saw some games that reduced the role of one player to just giving the information to another, and the second player had all the fun things to do. This needs to be balanced. Both players need to have a similar experience in terms of fun. So that's very, very important. Also, I mentioned this also a couple of times. Make them a little bit easier. Listen to feedback. Players are not your enemy, and they need to have fun. It's not like you are not designing this to beat the players, for them not to be able to solve the game. They need to solve the game to enjoy the whole experience. So listen to feedback and make things a little bit easier if players are stuck, and just have fun. Making games like this is, as mentioned earlier, very cooperative process in terms of how the team is involved. Testing, we need to do a little bit more of that, but it's also way more collaborative, because through the testing, everyone is just talking. They are explaining what they see on the screen. They are talking about what they are doing. So you have an insight into their minds while they are playing the game. That's an incredible thing to have, and it's an incredible tool when you are working on the game. And we've built our first game to bring people together. They are all about bringing people together, and so it's important, I think, to remember about that both players need to have fun, because that's all. That's why we are building those games.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to know: do you always have 11 puzzles in all your games? Where's the name come from? I don't.
No, that's actually because at this point I think half of our team is in Scotland, and we find it very funny how they pronounce 11, and we made 11 puzzles. This is like an internal joke of ours that we are just making fun of the Scottish people pronouncing 11 in a funny way.
So it's not actually.
We are going to Scotland next year. We're gonna ask people to pronounce 11.
Yeah, we're gonna talk to people in the street.
I need to hear what 11 sounds like.
Yeah, good.
I'm waiting for cooperative games to be the suggested choice for couples therapy. For couples that have issues communicating, and then for
or breakup,
save money on going to see a couples therapist. Try this
Yeah,
cooperative game.
Be very careful. Be very careful about that.
Yeah, or break up. That's what I said.
It could, it could be a, it could be a winner
Either
or
or.
lose.
Yeah.
Last thing we want to know is there anything you could share about the near future? Like, what can we expect
Finally.
soon in terms of new games
Your
and
question.
rooms and
Yeah.
tabletop at-home stuff? Anything you want to promote or share? Adrian, I know you briefly talked a little bit earlier about things in the works. Is there anything else you can share?
Yeah. Of course, we have very ambitious plans for the next year, and actually we plan to release 3 games next year.
Wow.
2 of which will be Unboxing the Mind of a Cryptic Killer and Parallel Lab on Steam, iOS, and Android. And as we speak, they are being ported to those 2 platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we are in the process. We are working on our biggest and most ambitious project yet, and that's going to be the game is going to be called Anagram Asylum, and we plan to release it late next year, and I think it's going to be incredible. So there is a lot of things in works right now on our end, but we are very, very excited. We are really excited that we have just released our first game on Steam, because that marks like the very important step in our transition from web games to Steam. Second stage is porting the games, and the third one is the game that we are already working on, and we are so excited because there is going to be so many amazing things enabled by the new technology and new knowledge that we have gained during this transition.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great.
Wow, and this is all for 2023.
Yeah.
Is it a longer game? That last one?
The Anagram Asylum?
Yeah, we will see. We plan it to be 3, maybe 4 hours long.
Oh
my
It will be a
that's
little
long
bit
game.
longer. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Complex Rooms, what else can you share? I know you talked a little bit about the at-home or tabletop.
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, we just recently closed our in-person escape rooms, and we're focusing on takeout experiences. So rents to bring home, or also work with large groups in conferences, expos, that type of thing, and then also our online games. So I'm not going to lie, we're probably going to take a sort of a 2-month sleep after everything we've just kind of gone through over the last couple of months. But both Jeff and I know I saw Jeff just last weekend, and I didn't want to talk about all the ideas I had, because I didn't want to. We're already we're closing. We've got so many things. Jeff, you should rest. And Jeff mentioned something to me, and I thought, okay, we're allowed to talk about it. Awesome. So we have lots of plans. Nothing concrete, because we really do have lots of games that have started already, and I think what we need to do is figure out what we want to focus on. And honestly, that's what probably we're going to talk about over our New Year's dinner, is figure out what our next plans are going to be. But we're going to definitely make some online games, some takeout games, and I'm sure something else. We just like that puzzling experience.
That's awesome.
Exciting.
Jeff was like,
That's
you said 2 months.
Yeah,
Give me
he's like, that is not New Year's dinner looking. No, I don't know if I'm looking forward to New Year's dinner. Very nice.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that
wonderful.
information. And again, check their website for updates, and you'll
New things coming.
2023 is right around the corner. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show. We learned so much about cooperative game designs. And we do like to also thank our episode sponsor, clueQuest. Spend a meaningful evening with your family this Christmas with Falling Stars, their print and play game from the UK's top-rated escape room. clueQuest's Print and Cut and Escape combines with printed physical puzzles that you can get with immersive online platforms. So that's a new type of game that you can play, but you can also watch videos and then put your answer online, and also there's a hint system if you get stuck. So their website is cluequest.co.uk.
Also, there's a cameo in there by somebody.
Oh yeah, you do. You cameo everywhere. I don't know how you get all.
I don't know. I do it when you're
positions.
sleeping. So.
Yeah. Well, anyways, guys, this is bittersweet as this is our final episode of Behind the MasterMinds, season 4. This is season 4 already. I feel like it's like Criminal Minds-ish, right?
Yeah.
It's like pretty long.
but Criminal Minds came back.
Yeah, that is true. Well, at this time, we wanted to, thank everyone, an audience especially, and our sponsors and our guests for their continued support. Without you guys, this wouldn't be a show that lasted this long. We hope that the content we bring to you is educational yet also entertaining at the same time. And from the bottom of our hearts, we wish you a very happy holiday. But also check out our website for Bullseye Award information, because currently we're running the semifinalists. If you do have any companies you want to support, you can vote on there. And our Game Masters of the Year and Employee of the Year awards is also running at the same time.
Yep.
So support your heroes of the industry, because no one's going to run your games if you know.
Yep, they can make or break your rooms with your games, so it's very important.
Exactly.
And now the 2022 Bullseye Award ceremony show airs on January 28th, 2023.
Because we also need to sleep a little bit for a month. But thank you so much, guys. We'll stay safe and warm, and we'll see you in the new year. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.